Christmas Day in Sydney is regarded by yachtsmen as the day before the Hobart race. The Classic, which began in 1945, is the centrepiece of Australian offshore yachting. Around it is built a series of preliminary races, more fun than important. That's not to say that those who take part in them do not sail hard, anything but. They all want to win. Stars of this scene are the maxi raters, the boats of around 80 feet overall. It's always true that the big boats provide the gloss, and it's natural that they should do. Huge and powerful, they're the front runners, the ocean greyhounds with crews of strong, experienced men. Rothmans K100 leads, the biggest, newest boat with the most experienced crew. The truly professional approach of the round-the-world racer finds no match among the competition. There's never any doubt about who will finish first. Condor, a veteran maxi, can no longer provide the speed to match the newer boat around the short courses. Offshore, things could be different. Brindabella, a smaller boat, new, fast, but not quite able to stay with the maxi raters, but fast as a witch downwind in a breeze. The smart money is on Rothmans for the Hobart. The early races proved that point. Seconds to go. A dry-mouthed time, high noon on Boxing Day. The southerly breeze is building and it will be a fast leg to the heads. 30 seconds and they jill for position on the line. On board Rothmans, it's all action. 20 seconds, 100 boats on the run in to the start. The pace and the pulse quickens on Rothmans. 10 seconds to go. The final bear off for the line. They're all close as the last few seconds tick away. 3, 2, 1. The race to Hobart is on, but first, there's the sprint around the turning mark just inside the heads for a case of champagne. The Rothmans crew have their eyes on that. So too do the boys on bobsled, an ultralight displacement boat that revels in brisk winds on a reach. Can Laurie Smith on Rothman's wheel hold off the challenge? Smith looks grim, but he knows he has the answer to bobsled. What's troubling him is exactly where the buoy ahead is placed. Vincent, the navigator, looks. Rothmans gets there first. That champagne won't last long in Hobart, but there are 627 more miles to go and a lot of boats to beat. Bobsled tacks and only just clears the boats astern. The Rothmans crew clear away the reaching jib. A smaller headsail has been set for the windward leg to come. All eyes are on the leader. The media make this race, and there's film and videotapes to collect to feed to the world's newspapers and television networks. The people in this speedboat want us, on Rothmans, to quit, but most of the boats around are there to cheer us on our way. The Hobart start provides Sydney's vast boating community with a chance to get out to play. Even, it seems, the Navy. The game plan has been to tack offshore until we're in the best of the southerly going current, and then tack almost parallel to the shoreline, on course for Hobart. There's plenty of breeze, and even hard on the wind, the speed is fast. Gradually, we're drawing away from Ragamuffin and Condor, but we know that anything can, and often does, happen in this race, generally on the first night out. We've heard the forecast, planned the strategy, and now we hope that it all works out. Laurie Smith steers, nursing the big boat against the waves, bruising them but not bursting them so that they don't absorb our energy. By daybreak on the second morning, there's been a big change in the weather. The breeze is now astern and building, and that's what every sailor wants. Free wind and plenty of it. A spinnaker is up, but the wind's too strong for its light material. A heavier one is needed, so Paul goes out to the spinnaker boom end to clip one on. "33 knots of true wind and 14 plus knots of boat speed. We're on our way, big time." The 3/4 ounce spinnaker comes down, and sometime during this manoeuvre it was torn. It often happens, but we didn't realise how important this mistake was to be. The breeze has freshened further. Shagmorton steers and Rothmans is clocking off the miles. Down below, crewman Mike Spees is on the phone to 2-Day FM, his radio station, with a report.
Well, Michael, how's it going aboard Rothmans?
We're the lead boat at the moment there. Condor is the next boat, approximately 5 miles behind. A fresh nor'easter has kicked in. It just touched about 30 knots, and Rothmans is sitting on probably 13 knots at the moment and getting to Hobart in super quick time.
The heavy spinnaker is pulling well. This is what we all enjoy. No one more so than Smith, but he'd never tell you. Vincent is listening to the regular position reports from the yachts. We're well out in front. Not surprising, really, when the boat is moving this quickly. Just imagine the energy needed to move 25 tons at this speed. The smiles tell it all. This is the sleigh ride we all dream about and so rarely experience. When you stick the bow into a wave at this speed, something's bound to happen. It can't go down forever. Oh, that's better. It's pretty wet on deck, up to your knees in water. It was wet too in Vincent's office. He's bailing out from down below. Here we go again. We have a little too much sail on. That spinnaker's got to come off. It's an all-action period and tricky because there's no headsail to hide it behind. One little mistake now could be costly, and it could be dangerous. It all seems to be going well. There's a lot of hands hauling in yards of nylon. Then the problems begin. The sail tears and some of the nylon goes into the sea. From then on, it's very definitely one-way traffic. Goodbye, spinnaker. Happily, we carry quite a few more. Unhappily, someone got hurt during that disaster. It's the Admiral, Don Buckley, and they don't come much tougher than him. We suspect a fractured arm. But we are still racing, and while we've taken off some of the excess pressure by dropping the spinnaker, the speed is rather less than any of us would like. We have our eyes on the race record still, and we need another sail on. We go with the blast reacher to get the boat moving fast once again. In these conditions, there's little room for error. We've already proved that. And Everything is carefully checked and rechecked before the sail is hoisted. There's a big sea running, and the good ship Rothmans is taking every possible opportunity to use those waves to her advantage. Speed's back up to almost 20 knots. Race record, here we come. Hurrying along like this is bound to bring a smile to the face of even the most cynical sailor. Some sit in reserve, while others pack sails. There's a sense of apprehension on board as the wind speed drops dramatically. Shag has seen it all before. The morning change in the southern hemisphere is as marked as the coming of the gale the previous day. It presents a new set of problems, and with it a new set of answers. It keeps you every bit as busy, but it's not so soaking wet. Russell, for instance, has some sail repairs to make. Laurie, a concentrated steering effort, and Guy, a sail to trim. That tear looks worse than it actually is, but it will have to be repaired. Meantime, another sail change.
Good, mate. Okay.
And this is the one that got us into trouble, although we weren't to know it at the time.
The other one's gone.
Coming on watch can be a shock to the system. It's not as bad as that, though, Laurie. Someone up there thought we'd had more than our share of fun and is now making us work for every mile.
Trim. Stop, gently, gently.
It's a very different ball game when, as the Americans might say, progress is a mighty slow process. You have to struggle to gain a fraction of a knot of extra boat speed, and you know that astern, everybody is catching up. At least, that's what you imagine, and that spurs you on to greater efforts. After the sleigh ride, you need some stimulus. There are other uses for a cigarette. Tom uses one to look for wind. There's not much of it about. Just think, 12 hours before, you could have added 20 knots to that boat speed. It was going to be one of those days. Boring, but necessary. And the sooner the wind returned, the better.
You want to stand there for a while?
Yeah, we had to look at the other side, it's a mainsail.
Good angle.
The next morning, the breeze was up, and we had a visitor. We don't leave you alone for long. We've turned the corner and heading towards the Derwent River in the cold grey dawn of another Tasmanian day. All thoughts of the race record are behind us. As the sun comes up over the horizon, the wind increases slightly, and with that, yet another sail change. I missed all this. It was my turn down below to slave over a hot galley stove, cooking breakfast. And somehow, after cooking all those rashers of bacon and 3 dozen eggs, I didn't fancy eating any. Someone in Hobart might do it better for me. The headlands, familiar to those who have done this race before, begin to show up. Rothmans is making good speed to windward, and there are still sail changes to be made under the eagle eye of the first spectators. That sail is packed and will be stowed below in proper order, ready, if needed, at a moment's notice. David, meanwhile, puts in a bit of spit and polish. Gotta look smart, too. The Iron Pot Lighthouse that marks the entrance to the River Derwent, and is something more than just a lighthouse to those who do this race. More often than not, the weather changes quite abruptly here, and everybody on board knows that. There's a new sense of purpose on board Rothmans, as only a few miles away the finishing line beckons. Even if the record chance has disappeared, we want to be there as fast as possible. As scratch boat, we have to give all the other boats time. In some cases, as much as a day and more. We cannot, therefore, give anything away if we're to win this race. Every ounce of power is squeezed from the rig as Rothmans makes her way to windward up the Derwent River, surrounded by an ever-growing spectator fleet. This is sailing at its very best, an efficient boat in the hands of experienced sailors giving a 100% performance. The last navigation mark and just 2 miles to go. Rothmans herself seems to sense the scene as an extra blast of wind causes her to heel. Shag and Laurie, who have driven the boat for most of the 630 miles, begin to smile. As old hands at this race, they know what to expect in Hobart. Fun with a capital F. The Tasmanian capital has a reputation for making the sailors welcome, and there'll be no exception for the Rothmans crew. First there always receives a very special welcome. The very last seconds of the race, the 80-foot yacht carves through the water, watched by the eyes of all Australians on nationally networked television. Their commentators eager to tell the story of the finish.
Bruce, the finish coming up.
Now, the gun will go any moment. There it's gone now. She's finished. She's finished and she's doing well.
And Rothmans has taken line honours in the 1990 Nortel Sydney Hobart Yacht Race. Congratulations to Laurie Smith and the crew there. A great effort. She hasn't broken the record, but she's certainly come down in a very, very quick time. And she's receiving now the traditional Hobart welcome at the end of the race.
That's how we saw it too, but what we didn't know was that our use of the spinnaker with the sponsor's logo was causing pain among the organisers. Neither did most of the welcoming crowd at the Elizabeth Street Pier. There's nothing quite like the welcome you get in Hobart. No other ocean race anywhere in the world has a finish like this. Enjoy yourself, Laurie, while you can. There's a bogeyman about to strike.
Nortel Sydney Hobart race. Reference Rothmans K100. The race committee, acting in accordance with sailing instruction 29.3, imposed a penalty upon the yacht Rothmans K100 of 10% of places for infringing IYRU Rule 26, Appendix 14, brackets Annexure 2 of the Nortel Asia Pacific Ocean Racing Championships Notice of Race. For and on behalf of the race committee, signed Lee Moynihan, Chairman, Greg Halls, Race Director.
Well, that put a slight damper on our fun. Although it was some time before Sid Fisher brought Ragamuffin up the Derwent to the finishing line in second place. Strangely, he was to get the glory, while the television commentators carried on their probing about our alleged foul.
Well, Kathy Hawkins spoke with Bob Fisher about flying the sponsor's spinnaker earlier today.
Quite honestly say, we flew it out of sight of everybody who could possibly think we were using it as an advertisement. We only flew it when we had to. If we'd have renewed all the spinnakers to come for this series, it would have cost us $250,000 Australian dollars. Now, that is beyond the budgetary control of the boat at the moment. It just isn't built in for that. So when we tore our 3/4 ounce spinnaker and tore it very badly, beyond repair on the boat, we had to fly a 3/4 ounce spinnaker. And so we flew the logoed one out of sight of land, out of sight of every competitor, out of sight of everyone. We're quite happy to declare that fact. And I think that it's a bit hard if disqualification should follow, because we couldn't afford to go to that for the budgetary reasons.
But isn't it against the rules to fly a spinnaker with a logo, with a company logo on it?
Well, there are all sorts of rules. There is Rothmans down the side of the boat in letters so high nobody can miss them. What is the difference between that and a logo spinnaker?
Well, down the side it's allowed and on the spinnaker it's not.
Well, these are rules which have to be challenged, perhaps.
Rothmans skipper Laurie Smith said he knew flying the spinnaker was illegal,
but he had no option.
It was either that or just watch everyone go sail by. If someone wants to make a big deal of it as flying a spinnaker in the middle of the ocean with no one else around, then, that's bad news, I think.
For Sid Fisher, it was a Pyrrhic victory.
Well, I don't feel as good as I would have if we'd won it under normal circumstances.
Those of us who enjoyed the sailing on board Rothmans in the 1990 Nortel Sydney to Hobart race will never forget where we finished. There was no one in front of us. We know it, and the world knows it. Perhaps we will remember that December morning in the way the local television commentators saw it.
Bruce, the finish coming up.
Right now, the gun will go any moment. There it's gone now. She's finished. She's finished and she's doing well.
And Rothmans has taken line honours in the 1990 Nortel Sydney Hobart yacht race. Congratulations to Laurie Smith and the crew there. A great effort. She hasn't broken the record, but she's certainly come down in a very, very quick time.